Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we explore the depths of holistic health, uncovering the interconnectedness of our emotions, mind, body, and spirit. This podcast is dedicated to individuals who are on a quest to uncover their truth, understanding their genetic and spiritual DNA, and learning how to harness this knowledge to achieve optimal health. But this isn't just another health podcast. The Natural Health Podcast is here to ignite a spark of hope within you, reminding you of your inner potential for greatness. You are pure love, capable of living life to its fullest expression. Are you ready to embark on a journey of transformational health to achieve optimal health? Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast. I'm absolutely excited for today's podcast episode. It's not like I'm not excited any other time, but this time I'm going to talk about DNA. I know in the introduction of Natural Health Podcast, I speak about spiritual and genetic DNA. I've spoken about spiritual DNA in the last few podcasts about Libra season, medical astrology, and so forth. And today I thought, okay, time to put in the DNA stuff. Time to talk about genetics. Time to talk about DNA. And I found one gene that I love talking about that's kind of linked to Libra season because it talks about type 2 diabetes, obesity, overindulging, and so forth, right? So the gene is called, I was like stuttering. I'm so excited. I'm stuttering. So the gene is called FTO. So what does that stand for? It stands for fat mass and obesity associated gene. Absolutely love the simplicity of it. It's not complicated. FTO, fat mass and obesity associated gene. It was actually the link between FTO and obesity was made in 2007. So quite recently, when you think about it, right? Love it that the scientists went into detail and found this gene and made an association with obesity. Look, they made an association with BMI too, and I know you know my thoughts about BMI. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but let's stick with it for this research, for this gene, and move forward from that. Essentially, you know, your BMI might say you're obese and you're not even obese, but with this gene, there has been research done and been linked to obesity. And why am I talking about it with Libra season is because when we talk about obesity, usually it's obesity and then follows type 2 diabetes, which is related, or not just type 2 diabetes, but which is related to Libra season and overindulging and so forth. So I thought I'll talk about this gene today. Essentially, with the FTO gene, it encodes a protein that is primarily expressed in the brain, and it plays a role in regulating our food intake, yummy, right, and energy expenditure. So when we have a thing called a SNP here, it alters that. It alters how we regulate our food intake, our appetite. Do we want more food? Do we want less food? So usually individuals with this SNP gene, they want more food, right? But then they also have less energy expenditure. So they're not expending as much. So these individuals need to, not need to, but usually their energy expenditure, if they have a SNP, drops, but they're hungrier. So what does that mean? You store more fat on you, right? So it's also thought to believe in the control of appetite and storage of excess energy in the form of fat. Exactly what I just said. So essentially our food intake, our appetite, we're going to be hungrier and we're going to be like, oh my gosh, I want more food, but we may not be able to express it or remove it as much as other individuals. And this is where it's really interesting because you may be sitting there and being like, okay, I may be obese. My family is obese. My mum, my dad are obese. My sisters are obese. My grandparents had extra fat on them. And it's like, so therefore, you know, my kids are going to be obese and it's genetic. Well, hold on. I want to say stop for 1 second and let's pull it back because we can't always just blame the genes for everything, right? You may not even have the FTO gene, and testing if you have it, I'll come back to that one. But it may actually be lifestyle related. We pass on our lifestyle to our kids. If we don't eat that well, our kids aren't going to eat that well. So it may actually be a lifestyle factor. And this is where I want you to sit down and be like, if you do suffer from obesity or if you know people, sit down and reflect and go, what is my lifestyle? What's my food intake like? What's my beliefs about food? Has that been passed on by my parents? Am I passing that on to my kids? So is it a lifestyle obesity or is it a genetic obesity? But if you are going to get your genes tested, please contact me if you want to know a reputable company. I've got contacts with an amazing company that tests genetics because I want you to be in safe hands. I want you to take full control of your medical data of your health data, because giving someone the access to your genes is a lot. If they know your name, they know where you live, they know your date of birth, they know your sex, they know so much information. So them being exposed to your DNA data is a lot, and this can be used against you, right? And the reason why it's so cheap for some companies is because they sell your data, because this data can be used for so much information. You can just imagine if you have, for example, in this test, they found out you're a 35-year-old female, and you have the FTO gene, and you live somewhere, like a certain place, they might be like, all right, awesome, well, in that location, we're going to place extra takeaway foods because you're going to be hungrier and your appetite's going to be bigger, so therefore it's going to advertise to you, or they might even advertise more foods to you, particular. The list just goes on. My brain just takes over when it comes to this, and I just want you to be careful, because I wouldn't want anyone to have access to my DNA data, and this is why I use this company that does not sell your data. It is more expensive. That's the reason why, it's because they don't sell your data. Anyway, off my tangent, if you want to know this company, contact me. I'll hook you up with them. Hook you up. Look at me like a little, I'll hook you up. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so back to FTO gene. Link in 2007 made with obesity, and the research has shown that this specific variant of the is associated with an increased risk of obesity, particularly individuals who have, this is called, who carry 2 copies of this risk SNP. You could have 1 copy, but if people have 2 copies, it's really, really impacts them. So what can you do if you do have that? If you do have that SNP, if you've done a DNA test and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to look, do I have the FTO gene? What does that look like for me? Mihaela, I need to know what this means. Contact me. Like, just ask me questions, shoot over. I am a naturopath, but remember, I'm not your naturopath. So everything I say now is very general, and it's literally for entertainment purposes only. Ha ha ha, entertainment. Anyway, so there's a research been done with the FTO gene and protein intake. So what this is saying is a high dietary protein intake can be protective against this SNP, and potentially BMI in this study. But you know what we feel about BMI. Anyway, so essentially a high protein intake, maybe if you came to see me, I would say, hey, think about your protein intake. What does your protein intake look like with this gene? Yeah, and the other one is also like, just a balanced diet. We'll keep going back to diet. It's kind of harder for these individuals because they have these neurotransmitters that are like these hormones that are activated. It's like, I want to eat more food. I need to eat more food. So yeah, so portion control, balanced diet, physical activity, stress management, good sleep, hydration, nutritional support, like the list goes on. I could talk about it for hours, but essentially one of the key things that you can get out of this, if you do have the FTO gene, is what does your protein intake look like? Because we know how important protein is, especially in obesity, type 2 diabetes, and so forth, but especially with this gene. There's research been done how important protein is with the FTO gene. There you go, a little bit of information about a certain gene, and I hope to continue this. I'm going to mix it up with the medical astrology, talking about zodiac signs and the potential, all their health stuff going on. And then I want to talk about some genes, because this is the stuff that gets me excited, and I want to share this with you. I want you to be educated and know how to harness spiritual DNA with genetic DNA and get the best outcome for you. All right, awesome. Now let's move into a research study. For fun, I just look at research studies that I want to share with you, and I came across one that I found absolutely interesting. I mean, all of the ones that I look at are interesting, but this is talking about eye health, our eyes, how important our eyes are. Because I was sitting there one day and I was like, okay, what would happen if potentially for me, my eye health goes downhill? How would I feel about it? What would happen? And I sat there and I was a bit uncomfortable, because I love seeing things. I love seeing people. I love seeing nature. I love seeing the sunset, the sunrise. I love seeing laughter. I love seeing people together. I love seeing my food. And this isn't to put down anyone who's listening who can't see. There's a reason why things happen to us, and there's a reason why things are happening to me and so forth. But I just thought I'll reflect upon that for myself. And I thought, I really want to have good eye health as I age. And because I want to have good eye health as I age, what can I do to keep my eye health potentially? And I had a look at how the eye works, nerves, and so forth. And I came across this study, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. So this study looked at vitamin B3. In particular, I'm not gonna pronounce this properly. Watch. Okay, so I'm gonna try my best. Nicotinamide. I'm gonna call it NAD. All right, NAD plus to make things easier for you and me. Okay, so NAD plus, it's a coenzyme found in every cell in our body, absolutely essential for energy production and cellular repair. Full stop. It's needed for like every cell in our body. Amazing. It works in the mitochondria. So it plays a role in the mitochondria, mitochondria is the powerhouse of our cells. And as we age, NAD plus actually declines like dramatically. And this impacts so many things in our bodies. And I'm like, I do not want my NAD plus to drop as I age, right? Because it impacts our mitochondria, which means it impacts so many different things in our body. And for this reason, for this particular thing that we're talking about, it's our eye health. So when this drops, it can impact our eye health and potentially lead to glaucoma. Oh my gosh, me and my pronunciation. Good luck. All right. Anyway, so there's a research, there's a study in November 2021 in the Journal of American Medical Association, and it's called oral nicotinamide NAD plus treatment for glaucoma phase 2 randomized trial. And it came out in this journal, but essentially the first journal it came from is the Clinical and Experimental Ophthalmology in 2020. Okay, you can trust me. Just because I can't pronounce words doesn't mean... Nah. I give myself stuff always about this. I do have a gene in the dyslexia gene, which I'm going to talk about hopefully in another episode, and we can talk about that. And then I'll talk about everything why I can't pronounce words properly. But until then, let's go with NAD+. So this phase 2 randomized double-blinded placebo-controlled study, amazing, included 57 human participants with primary open-angle glaucoma. The participants were administered NAD plus over 12 weeks with evaluations of their visual functions and optic nerve health. So this study found that NAD plus supplementation improved inner retinal function, which suggests that NAD plus is preventing and or slowing down glaucoma progression, improving our eye health, or even making sure that our eye health doesn't drop or reduce. So keeping our eye health, right? Which is absolutely amazing. What they used in this study was 1,000 to 3,000 mgs of NAD+. They also used pyruvate, 1,500 to 3,000 mgs, but there are studies where they just also used NAD+. So it can be it could be used in combination with this, but it doesn't have to be, okay? So essentially the outcome is that NAD+ significantly improved visual function, showing potential for slowing down this disease progression of eye health, which is amazing. And it's like, I wanted to know the functioning of how it worked. And we're going back to the mitochondria, right? So mitochondrial abnormalities may be an early driver for eye health deterioration. Boom. So if we work on the mitochondria in detail, we can work on our eye health. And not only will you get the benefit of eye health, you'll get the benefit of mitochondrial health, which is energy, which is drive, which is powerhouse of every single cell. It's like, oh my gosh, like that makes total sense. So by taking NAD+, it improves the retinal ganglion cells, which are absolutely essential for transmitting visual information from the retina to the brain. So essentially, by supporting NAD+ and the mitochondrial function, it helps protect these cells from oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction, which is an absolutely key factor in development and progression of eye-related diseases. Think about that. I love this. And you know what? I want to make a note that we are here talking about NAD+, not niacin, B3. Because there's a confusion between sometimes B3 supplements. There's niacin and there's the NAD+. And this is where we need to make sure we're taking the right form of supplement to improve mitochondrial function, which essentially can improve our eye health. This is why I got so excited about this particular study. And this is not just one study. There's so many other studies that have found this also. And it's new, it's recent, it's only like a few years old. And it's like, I'm interested to see where this goes, because if I had a supplement company, I would be making an eye health related supplement that would have NAD+ in it. Absolutely. Absolutely. It would have NAD+, it would have so many other things. I'm not going to blab it on because who knows, maybe I'll make that supplement one day. I may or may not. But essentially, if you're concerned about your eye health, talk to a healthcare professional, talk to a naturopath, talk to whoever you want to talk to, but maybe look into this study also, and look at the potentials of NAD+ for eye health and how that can essentially help mitochondrial function, help the optic nerve, help the brain, help the retina, and so forth. The list goes on. This excites me because I want to keep my eye health. I want to be able to make memories in life. I want to be able to see the world in front of me as it is. So hopefully, I'm able to keep my eye health. And this is something that I'm currently taking. I'm taking NAD+, and something that I'm excited to have on my, see my clients take, or people who have eye issues or glaucomas or are concerned about their eye health. And it's like, well, here we have hope. We have a possibility of what we can do to improve our health, which is absolutely exciting. So today's episode is kind of like a little short one, but it's still out. I spoke a bit about the gene, the absolutely amazing fat gene, which I love, the FTO gene, fat mass and obesity associated gene, how it's linked to obesity, linked to higher BMI, and what we can do about it. So many things you can do about it. Just because you have the gene does not mean, oh my gosh, I'm going to be obese and fat for the rest of my life. No, it does not mean that. It means, okay, I have the gene, I can be more gentle on myself, I can understand where my genetics are coming from, I can understand what the hormones, the neurotransmitters are doing in my brain, and they're wanting me to eat that food, and I can take control of this. I am able to control it with lifestyle factors, with potential supplements, with increasing my protein. I'm always banging on about the protein, especially for women. Protein. Anyway, okay, cool. Amazing. And then I spoke about this absolutely amazing study with vitamin B3, in particular NAD+, and eye health. The latest research has come out about that. So hopefully you enjoyed this podcast episode. Short, cute little one. And thank you so much for tuning in on Natural Health Podcast. Thank you for joining us on Natural Health Podcast. And remember, you are pure love, capable of living life to its fullest expression. Content and information provided here is the opinion of Mihaela Raguz and is for information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. It is not intended to provide medical advice or take the place of medical advice or any current treatment you're undertaking. Consult your own medical professionals for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast. It is advised that you consult your doctor or healthcare professional in relation to any health concerns you may be having. Mihaela Raguz does not take responsibility for any health consequences which occur from a person listening, viewing, or reading this content. And in circumstances shall the Natural Health Podcast, Mihaela Raguz, any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast, or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Mihaela Raguz be responsible for damages arising from the information provided on the Natural Health Podcast. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical conditions in either yourself or others. Please note, if you're taking prescription, do not stop your medication or start a new protocol, including but not limited to supplements, diet, lifestyle changes without consulting a doctor or healthcare professional. If you or any person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical advice. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have read or heard on the Natural Health Podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. Neither Mihaela Raguz nor the publisher of this content takes responsibility for the possible health consequences of any person or persons reading or listening or following the information in educational content.